Inflation expected to ease past the peak. Yen falls to 132 against dollar, hitting 20-year low. Biden to exempt tariffs on PVs from Southeast Asia. Putin talks with African Union leader on grain supply. Overweight people lost 23 kilograms on new diabetes drug. Russian bonds may be deemed effectively in default. Bank and tech staff depart for fintech startups. Foldable smartphone shipments rose 571%.
Hello, I'm Peggy. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It is June 8th, Wednesday, and here are your top stories. Media reported after months of rising prices and tightening purse strings, the price of semiconductor chips, shipping, and fertilizer are receding down to normal levels, indicating that global inflation might be past its peak. These three supply-side metrics, which pushed inflation levels to the highest point in 40 years across the world, are now turning around and falling. Analysts are looking forward to a slowdown in May's Consumer Price Index inflation, date on 10th of June, which will hopefully confirm that have indeed passed the inflation peak.
According to Bloomberg data, the price of semiconductors, which has weighed down industries producing anything from PCs to cars to light bulbs, is finally showing signs of easing. The in-Spectrum Tech PC DRAM contract price is at half of its July 2018 peak and down 14% from the same time last year. Meanwhile, the spot rate for shipping containers, which is used as an indicator for future prices, has declined 26% since its September 2021 all-time high. And finally, the price of fertilizer, which has soared since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, is 24% below its record high in March.
The Japanese yen fell to below 132 in New York on Monday, June 6, the weakest level in 20 years in 2 months. And the market expects the gap between the U.S. and Japanese interest rate levels to widen again. With the release of better-than-expected U.S. employment data for May at the end of last week, coupled with rising energy and food prices, the market is expecting the U.S. Federal Reserve to accelerate interest rate hikes before the end of the year to fight inflation. But in contrast, the Bank of Japan appears to be maintaining an accommodative monetary policy.
The governor of the Bank of Japan, Haruhiko Kuroda, on June 6, ruling out the possibility that the central bank will shift toward credit tightening anytime soon. Kuroda said, unlike other central banks, the bank has not faced the trade-off between economic stability and price stability. For this reason, it is certainly possible for the bank to continue stimulating aggregate demand from the financial side. The BOJ asserted that the recent bout of inflation is a mixed result because most of it can be attributed to surging energy and raw material prices due to Russia's war in Ukraine, not strong domestic demand.
The White House issued a proclamation on June 6 that will allow solar panels to be imported to the United States from Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia, and Vietnam without risk of tariffs for a 24-month period. Biden proclaimed a state of emergency over electricity generating capacity of the United States. He claimed that the shortage of solar modules and module components has abruptly put at risk near-term solar capacity that could help ensure the electricity generation to meet customer demand.
In the statement, the President of the United States has declared a state of emergency because there is a real threat that the available electricity supply will not be sufficient to meet customers' expected demand. In order to provide relief from the emergency, the Secretary of Commerce may permit the importation, free of the collection of duties and estimated duties, until 24 months after the date of the proclamation of certain solar cells and modules, exported from Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam.
The chairman of the African Union, Senegal's President Macky Sall, told Russian President Vladimir Putin last Friday that the fighting in Ukraine and Western sanctions had worsened food shortages and appealed to other countries to ensure grain and fertilizer exports aren't blocked. Putin took the position that the West was responsible for the global food and energy crisis and reiterated that his government would provide safe passage for grain export by ship from Ukraine, one of the world's leading exporters of wheat and corn.
According to UN figures, African countries imported 44% of their wheat from Russia and Ukraine between 2018 and 2020. Putin proposed several corridors to allow foreign ships safely to leave ports along the Black and Azov Seas. He said Odessa and other ports under Ukrainian control could be used for exports after mines are removed, and also those now under Russian control, Berdyansk and Mariupol. He also suggested moving grain through neighboring countries such as Belarus.
A new study found that with a weekly dose of tirzepatide, which is sold under the brand name Manjaro, almost 40% of individuals lost a quarter of their body weight. In the study, people without diabetes lost an average of 15% to 20.9% of their starting body weight over the course of the 72-week. The study was conducted as a double-blind randomized clinical trial and was published in the New England Journal of Medicine on 4th of June. The medication has recently been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to treat type 2 diabetes.
A potentially game-changing drug that may help some people lose weight.
In the study, when Manjaro was studied in people without diabetes in 3 dosages, 5, 10, and 15 milligrams, participants with obesity or who were overweight and took the 5 milligram dose lost an average of 16 kilograms. Those on the 10 milligram dose lost an average of 22 kilograms, and participants on the 15 milligram dose lost an average of 23.6 kilograms. The most common side effects reported were nausea, diarrhea, and constipation. It is not recommended for people with certain thyroid problems.
The Credit Derivatives Determination Committee on June 1st upheld the claim by investors that Russia did not include additional interest following a delay on the repayment of a dollar-denominated Russian bond at maturity on April 4th. The Russian government initially said they would pay in rubles, but eventually paid in US dollars a month later. Investors claimed Russia has not paid the $1.9 million interest accrued during that period. This ruling by the CDDC could be regarded in the market as a material default of the Russian bonds.
Russia may be inching closer to an historic default on its sovereign debt. A panel of investors determined that late payments on nearly $1.9 million of interest last month did constitute a so-called failure to...
Media reported, CDDC's decision means holders of Russian credit default swaps will receive a payout, with the size to be determined by an auction process of Russian bonds, because Russia's failure to pay a slice of interest on one of its bonds would trigger $2.5 billion of insurance-like contracts used to protect against debt defaults. The Credit Derivatives Determinations Committee ruled that failure to pay pushes the Moscow authorities one step closer to the largest debt default in history.
According to workplace intelligence company Revelio Labs, departures from traditional banks such as Goldman Sachs and HSBC to fintech companies including Coinbase and Revolut are up 75% since the start of the pandemic. Revelio said in March 72 people jumped from one job to another, reaching the highest number of monthly job changes. At the same time, a significant number of employees from technology companies such as Amazon and Microsoft left for new ventures. Coinbase alone snagged 197 employees from Amazon, 97 from Google's parent company Alphabet, 73 from Microsoft, and 72 from Facebook's Meta platform.
That's investing in companies that are winning the war for talent in key strategic initiatives.
An economist at Revelio, Lisa Simon, said, a better work-life balance, improved pay, and better career prospects are the key drivers. And a tight job markets allow many tech employees to change jobs, seeking higher salaries and more flexible routines. As a result, bankers, engineers, data scientists, and sales staff from Wall Street, the City of London, and Silicon Valley are among those joining an exodus that picked up speed during the pandemic. Simon said, people have stopped and re-evaluated what's important to them.
DSCC data revealed global foldable smartphone shipments rose 571% year-over-year in Q1 2022 to 2.22 million units, among which clamshell models accounted for a 70% share. It was the third best quarters to date. Samsung continued to dominate the category, but its share fell to 74% with Huawei's shares rising to 20%. By model, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 led the market for a third straight quarter, earning a 51% share. The Galaxy Z Fold 3 remained number 2 for the third straight quarter, but was nearly overtaken by the Huawei P50 Pocket.
When it comes to foldable smartphones, Samsung Z Flip line is the most popular of them all. Last year, Z Flip 3 was responsible for more than 60% of sales in the foldable phone market in both Q3 and Q4 of 2021, making it the most...
GSCC CEO Rosyan expects shipments of folding smartphones will increase by 107% to 16 million units, and shipments of folding smartphone tablets will increase by 102% to 20 million units in 2022. Driving the growth will be Samsung's ambitious plans for its upcoming Z Flip 4 and Z Fold 4 launch, as well as contributions from new models in the second quarter from 3 other brands. One of the interesting developments to watch in 2022 will be how the Fold 4 performs. She believes that Samsung has recently increased its expectations for this product.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. Let's make every day a fun day. I'm Peggy, your host. I'll see you next time.